welcome back to The Authentic Advantage. Today, I'm joined by Avishag Daniely, VP of Alliances and Marketing at OneLayer. Avi has spent more than 15 years in cybersecurity, building an impressive career that spans security, research, product management, product marketing, and now strategic alliances and brands. And she didn't follow a traditional path. She started deep in the technical side of cybersecurity, and then she evolved into a leader responsible for partnerships, growth, marketing, and helping organizations bring innovative solutions to the market. So today, we're going to talk about career evolution, cybersecurity trends, the power of partnerships, and what it really takes to move from being a technical expert to a business leader. Avi, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Angie. Happy to be here.
I'm excited to kick this episode off with a fun game of Would You Rather, and it's been trending recently. So, would you rather prevent every cyber attack or instantly detect every cyber attack?
It's a wonderful question. I think we'll go with prevent. Yeah, that's it. It's already done. You get it off your to-do list. That's the wish list, right? It's the let's do minimal work and get the maximum outcomes.
Yes. Would you rather build the product or sell the product?
Cool. It's a great one. Well, I'm going to say it depends. It depends on company, product, company needs, right? Part of my journey has been evolving across different roles. It really does. My personal evolution is I shift according to needs as well. Like where there's real problems that are worth solving, I'll usually jump on that. So that's been at least my theme of evolution. And especially if there's something new for me to learn in this process. So that's the best thing. So really depends. I'm happy to sell. I'm happy to build without being too self-boasting.
I love it.
I can do both great. So
I love it.
So both are great options. Yeah.
So I'm the same way. It depends on the scenario. I can do both.
Exactly.
So tell me what the details are.
Yeah, exactly. It's all in the details.
So now you're marketing. So I have to ask, would you rather have unlimited budget or unlimited talent?
Talent. That's an easy one for me. Unlimited talent. And then budget will come from there. They'll find a way.
Exactly. They'll get creative. Good talent will always get creative.
Exactly. Best talent. Talent is the best thing.
Love it. And last one, would you rather go back and give advice to your younger self or receive advice from your future self?
Oh, wow. Probably depends on the point in time. There are moments where I'd love my future self to give me advice. I might not act on it, but I'd still like it. And there are moments where I'm happy to go back to myself and say, hey, but I think generally I'll say I'm not really good at I would have done it differently. I usually look forward and I say, okay, so that's my experience. This is what I've learned from it. I'll do better next time. That's it. Or now I have the tools to do it differently next time. Doesn't mean it'll be better. It just means I know more today than I did before to be able to act differently.
Right. I mean, and the more mistakes that you make, the more you learn, right?
They all amplify into lessons if you take them there.
Absolutely. And so I always tell my kids, we don't make mistakes, we make discoveries. Same thing, right? But
I love that.
To your point.
Yeah, I love that. I might use that.
You should.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know you yet, tell us a little bit about your journey into cybersecurity.
Sure. So my journey has been a little bit, I'd say, not what I had personally expected for myself. So when I was in high school, about several years ago, I actually learned art and I majored in art, and that was my thing. I thought it would be my thing for many, many years. And then in where I come from originally, which is Israel, it's mandatory to go into the army. And the army basically routed me into cybersecurity. And and they basically said, hey, this is what's going to suit you for the time that you need to do in the army. Cause you go through all these different tests and, they place you in different places. And so I went into an intelligence unit to do, actually cyber offense, not cyber defense at that point. And that just opened those doors for me. I found a new way to route my creativity, a new way of thinking. It helped me find my path professionally. It's not to say I'll never go back to art. Yeah. So that was kind of how I ended up in cyber. And then from there, it was smooth sailing through a lot of different opportunities that I was very fortunate to have.
Well, I like that because a lot of times we spend years trying to figure out where we should go, what we should do, and they weren't wrong.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way.
They weren't wrong. They set me on a path and I kept going in it, and I'm not regretting it so far. So yeah.
Yeah. You've built an amazing career. Was there a specific moment when you realized you wanted to move beyond the technical side though of the industry?
That's a great question. So a couple of years back, I was with a different company, and there was a point in time that was quite amazing where the company had a shift in perspective in the product. So we knew that the product was going in one direction, detection for that matter. And then we at some point there was a conversation with the customer and we understood we probably need to go down the route of prevention, which is pretty
Right.
interesting given our previous conversation. And then that was a very specific point in time where there was a need in the company to go expand the business. And I'd actually relocated through the company to Spain. And that was a wonderful opportunity. I had a lot of experience in the field. I'd expanded my reach, my knowledge, my interaction with customers and partners. And it opened my eyes into this whole new world of business that I hadn't necessarily experienced before. And at that point, I don't know that it was so much a conscious point where I made the decision to shift. So much so as because that was the opportunity, there was the need, everything aligned, my personal interest, the needs, and my next opportunity for growth. That was a wonderful, like everything comes together. Let's go get it kind of thing. And that sent me down that path. So
A lot of
it was
times
a
that's
really
how it
great
works,
moment.
right? Like the opportunity just comes and it wasn't something we thought about, but it just naturally fit.
Yeah.
But speaking of, a lot of people do feel stuck in their lane professionally. What advice would you give someone who's looking to reinvent themselves?
So I wouldn't necessarily call it reinvent yourself. I always think that whatever tool I have in my toolbox from my past self, I really do believe that those tools are the ones I can build on top of. I can always repurpose them, right? So there's a lot of creativity in creating products. There's a lot of creativity in marketing. There's a lot of creativity in partnerships sometimes and how you build those relationships. So and even if I go back to that art background, right? All of those different things, they build into that kind of a path. Right. So it is very, to me, when I think through this, I kind of think it's not about reinventing yourself. It's so much so as repurposing the tools that you already have and building on top. Right. So adding more tools to your toolbox, but repurposing the ones that you have. And so for me, I think it's a shift that comes naturally based on the opportunities that are presented. And sometimes it's not exactly what you had expected, right? You set on a path, you expect one outcome, it turns out to be another. That's okay. But still within it, as long as you treat it as a lesson learned and how can I take that as part of my tools for the next one, right? Because it doesn't end here. There's always more. So that's kind of how I look at it. And that's how I treat my career. I look for the opportunities if they align and by the way, I do actively seek opportunities as in I have conversations, not to shift a role or to make a move, so much so as to learn what's out there. What should I be doing? What can I be doing that I'm not doing today? Maybe I use it where I am today for a company. Maybe I will use it in the future, but whatever it is, those things to me are tools within my toolbox that I consistently use because I also learn the market that way. So I think
Yeah.
that's very important and keeps me open to opportunities and to whatever comes next for growth wherever I am.
I like that thought process about repurposing your toolbox because I never thought about it that way, but that's what I've done. And so, I think the biggest thing, and I'm really just asking you if you agree, is one shift is the mindset shift because everyone can repurpose their tools. But I think a lot of people stay stuck because they feel like, well, I've never done that. I don't have the experience. A lot of people are open to you moving or shifting, you going from engineering and to product and marketing to alliances. Yeah, you didn't have that experience years ago, but again, and it's true, really having those conversations, networking, seeing what's out there for building your circle. So I love that. I'm going to use that one now, the repurposing the tools.
Sure.
So over the years, how has your leadership style evolved?
Great question. So I think, first of all, over the years, my leadership style has evolved given my experiences, right? It's the same thing. If we go back to the toolbox, right? The decisions that I had originally made are very different than the decisions that I would make today because I've evolved and I've seen different things. I've seen different scenarios. I've experienced more. So now I have more tools to use within my toolbox when I go through this. I can give a very clear example. I learn from them and I take them with me. So my very first let go, when I had to let somebody go for the first time as a manager, that to me was a very difficult, heartfelt experience. I was struggling with it and I had prolonged it, something I would not do today. And I was there to I tried whatever tool I had to give that person an additional opportunity and more ways to grow within the company and repurpose them and a lot of different things to maybe find a way to make it work. When today I sometimes come to an earlier conclusion saying it's not, people can be amazing. And I tend to hire, this is my belief, I hire amazing people. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily the best fit for the company and what it is today, because companies evolve.
Right.
I work for startups along the way. So it's also about, am I planting the right seed in the right soil at the right time or at the right season of the year so that it can grow effectively? And so that's my perspective about people that I hire into teams, and that have changed. The initial leader me wouldn't have looked at it that way. I would have tried everything in my toolbox to keep a person around, even if it's not right for the company at that stage. And today I look at it very differently, and I see it as more of it's just not a fit sometimes. And when that's the case, then it's okay to say this isn't working, and I'll help you find your next step the most effective way that I can. But that's the best that I can do in that scenario. And it's not about you, it's not about me, it's just about the fit. And that's a shift,
Yeah.
for example. So I also think that that's a good example of my leadership style as well. It's changed. It's a different kind of mindset as to how I look at team, how I look at companies, and how I would take action.
Well, I view that as just a normal, human desire to have empathy and help others. But then over time, like you said, you do realize you grow professionally and some things just don't fit and things do evolve. And while you may have fit in the beginning, not later on. So I like that thought process. Now, moving away from the leadership and how you've grown over the years, you're now in the alliances piece. And I hold this part dear to my heart just because that's where I came from. And I absolutely love building partnerships. And I want to ask you, what to you makes a truly successful strategic partnership?
Amazing question. So the first I'll start with like my mindset about partners. Partners can actually fit into a lot of different categories for a company. They can be the tactical pipeline partners. Let's go sell through this partner. Let's go make money and deals. Those are the highlights of enterprise, right? You want your partners to sell and to be a revenue stream for you. So that's I'd say the best case. But in total honesty, most partnerships aren't that way, and most of them won't be as lucrative as we'd like. So I tend to look at partners as how can they contribute to general growth, right? So if you look at partners, you can say, okay, some will attribute to my brand, some I will build brand around, and that will help me grow and create awareness, right? And help
Right.
influence. The other partners could be those that would be my moats, right? The ones that I would build that moat around that says, hey, this is when I run down this path and I create this integration, this technical partnership, this sort of a relationship with this partner, then once I'm at that customer site, it's much harder to get me out of there, right? Because I'm already within that mode. So that's
Yep.
another a great one. Another one is everything around advocacy, right? So how can I use a partner to advocate on my behalf? So it's not necessarily brand association, but they can definitely be the ones to influence decisions for me. And then I can take all of this. And what I usually do with partners is I take those different partnerships and I map them to the funnel. I call it the buyer journey because that's my perspective into selling. You
Right.
obviously look internally in the company, you look externally towards the customer and what their journey of buying is. And then we look at it from a customer perspective. What I do is I map our partners into each phase of the buyer journey. And then I'm able to understand and also attribute them a role. Is their role to influence? Is their role to generate revenue? Is their role to associate for advocacy? There's a lot of different things there, and there are more roles in there that we can have. And I measure partners differently. So based on the role that I've given them in the specific phase, that's how you measure their success.
I like that. And what mistakes do you think that companies are making when it comes to building, the channel or alliance program?
Sure. Well, the biggest problem is that you think every partner will generate revenue, will be a pipeline partner. And that's just the classic mistake, right? It's and then you try to measure them on something that they're not the right kind of partner to achieve. What you actually want to do is be able to really strategically understand what's the benefit of each partner, how far you can take them, and how much investment will actually take to get there, because sometimes it's not worth the time. And then based on their role for you, your joint aligned, I'd say, goals with the partner, you also know how much to invest in it based on where you want to get to. So the biggest mistake I see is people thinking that every partner is a pipeline partner, and then trying to measure them on that and invest in that with every partner when you might just be running on empty because that's not the right partner for pipeline. And you can definitely get them to create influence, for example, but not that. Not yet.
Right. Knowing their role. Well, the big thing that I saw really it depends on your geography, right? So a lot of companies I see, especially starting out in the channel, they just want to go all in on the national, what we would consider national partners. And while these national partners do really well in some areas, there are some areas like for instance, where I live in Southern California, it's very boutique. It's very, we heavily rely on our boutique partners, right? So we're not going to have the
Yeah.
same outcome. But to your point, those boutique partners, they have different value and skill sets that we could be using instead of putting them in that box. So I
Yeah.
really love that way of thinking.
I think that's a wonderful take as well. I think that's so true. Like, how should I go for the hyperscaler partners or should I go for the smaller ones? And that really changes what business you're doing, right? If you
Right.
have a cloud security product, you definitely want to do hyperscalers at some point. You'll need them for sure. But if you're doing a different kind of product, then or maybe like a more traditional B2B enterprise solution, going with the boutique partners is definitely key. But that's about mapping those partners and their role for you, right? Maybe you just
Absolutely.
need brand association with the big ones, and the smaller boutique ones are the ones that will be pipeline partners for you. So it really does depend again on how you also strategically analyze their role for you.
Absolutely. So when you're evaluating a partnership, like or whether a partnership will create long-term value versus short-term revenue, how do you look at that?
So, by the way, that actually takes me back to my original take of giving partners a role. Some partners can have a role today that should evolve over time into something else. So I might start out with a specific partner as, let's say, that's a brand association partner. I will piggyback on their brands to build my own kind of thing. But eventually I'll aim for a pipeline partnership because there is a route to that there. And that could be a very strategic long-term revenue stream for us, right? There is a path to that. So if we think about that, like if that's how we think about partners, it's also about analyzing what they can do. So a good example is hyperscalers. Many times what you'll want to do is start out with, I'd say the minimum, right? It's a tech partner. I'm a cloud product and I need to run on one of the infrastructures. So it starts there, right? It's a tech integration. It can build on top over time, and it should, if that makes sense to eventually sell on the marketplace, right? So it's also about understanding when is the right time to do different things and what you're seeing in your market, especially in a startup. You also need to be in tune with what you're seeing in the field, with actually what's happening with your customers. Who is my customer base? What is my product market fit? And then when you look at that and you understand what's your, I'd say, market that you're going after, your TAM, then it also becomes easier to successfully map partners. I can give an example. The OneLayer, which I'm at today, with actually sells to various different verticals. And if we think through that, right, through different verticals, there are different partners to map
Yep.
to different verticals. So that's another approach, right? If it's a verticalized market that you need to go through, that you're going through, then you'd also need to map your partners to the verticals, and they would be completely different if you're selling to one vertical versus another. And then it's a completely different investment as well. So that's kind of how I'm looking at these different relationships and partnerships and markets. It all comes together.
Are you seeing partners still hesitant to, become certified with these hyperscalers and sell?
Super interesting. So I can give an example from my world today. I'm talking cloud, but actually I'm in a completely different domain. My hyperscalers would be the telecom partners today in my
Okay.
case.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so I can give examples all across. And if you think about that, then boutique partners are sometimes, especially for a startup, easier and faster to execute on and see return from, right? So it's also a matter of when do I invest in a partner? We could have started out thinking, okay, we eventually want to invest in a huge telecom provider, right? Because the revenue stream potentially from there would be 10 times what I can get from another. But it takes a very long time to build such a relationship. And by the way, that's another mistake that I see is people not understanding how long it can actually take to build that kind of rapport with such a big partner to start actually seeing return in revenue. So it could take you 2-3 years to get that very first customer together with that partner and then get that rolling, right? So, and that's sometimes even a good case. You might need to go along
Right.
a lot of you might have to partner with others so that you create enough rapport so that they'll even agree to partner with you, right? So there's a lot of different ways for these things to be built, right? One on top of the other. So when we think through that kind of a route, right? And we think through this kind of style of business, right? At an early stage for a startup, it doesn't make sense to start investing from the get-go in the hyperscalers. that's what you're starting with, and the path can be several years to revenue. You need to show numbers fast. You have that
Yeah.
very number, you have that amount of money in your bank account that's just running out. So those boutique partners that might not bring in, they could be great for those first deals. And by the way, they might not be the best investment long term, right? They could be great investment short term because they have their set of customers that you can already sell to. They have X amount of customers that they procure along the way, but they're not going to be your main revenue stream. They can be those that will get you to that main revenue stream if you acquire a few of those along the way to eventually build that rapport with the big ones that will eventually sell you. So that's kind of how I look at it. And it's really also about a point in time. When do I start with each relationship? How much do I invest in each relationship? When do I double down, go all in on a specific partner relationship? So those are different questions that are different timing for, yeah.
Love that perspective. And so shifting a little bit, how are you seeing AI changing the cybersecurity landscape for better or for worse?
Yeah. There's a few different levels to the change that's happening. First, it's products themselves. Everything has to be AI powered today, right? It's either you're building a traditional cybersecurity product that has AI features built into it, or you're doing AI security, and then it's a whole new niche. But then there's how it actually affects companies. And when you think about it, that's not just cybersecurity specific, it's just enterprise in general or any company that's growing today. It's expected of you to use AI in your day to day. And I'll say not necessarily just as an automation. I actually see it as workflow redesign. Things that we are used to doing a certain way will change dramatically and are changing dramatically because you can rethink them completely. I've seen different
Right.
companies adopt different ways of using AI that are incredible. They rethink how functions work. It also helps you rethink how to measure success because it's no longer clearly there's metrics for marketing, there's metrics for product, for content, there's metrics for partners, there's metrics for sales. A lot of the times AI can be the tool to create joint metrics that everybody contributes to. And it's a
Yep.
joint process. And when you think of workflow redesign, it's not about silos like departments anymore that are measured on specifics, right? It's as a company, what are we measured on? And how does everybody contribute to that successfully? And what pieces of the puzzle do we contribute into it? And I've seen AI and workflow redesign contribute to that tremendously. It's incredible to see. There is the challenge though of the existing, if you build from zero with that in mind, I think it's a little bit easier than shifting towards that kind of a mindset. It creates organizational redesign. That's something that people need to start thinking about more strategically, I think, given AI and what you can do with it.
Yeah. And so, with that, what should leaders be paying attention to today that they may be overlooking? And it doesn't have to be on the AI piece.
Sure. You'll start with what am I doing today that AI can automate for me? Or what am I doing today that AI can make easier, faster? But that's a scope of thinking that is very different than what should I or can I be doing that I wasn't able to do before. But now, given the tools in my toolbox that are AI, I can suddenly completely reimagine. That takes a lot of creativity. And it also takes a lot of, I'd say, guts to do if it's an existing company,
Yep.
because you are definitely going to build things very differently. And it kind of requires that you shift things. It's a shift in thinking. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So you have to be versatile for sure, like in the way you think and the way you view things, because it's so ever changing in this field. As you know, it's a constant change. And where we are today is going to be completely different 3 months from now.
Yeah.
So, okay. So shifting away from technology altogether and moving over, you're just so well rounded with all the different roles that you've played, but the marketing and personal branding piece, you've worked in both product and marketing leadership. How important is personal branding in cybersecurity?
I think generally in any leadership role, personal branding it plays a key part. People buy from people that they trust. And
Yep.
so it's first and foremost, it's about how do you create that trust? And a lot of times it's when you're a startup, you'll have a conversation with a customer and you'll sit down there and you'll build that trust just because they feel and they know who you are. But then when you grow and the leadership doesn't necessarily no longer have as much of an engagement with end customers, with end partners, the team grows, right? There are more and more people involved in all these different facets. You do need to have a way to maintain that sense of a connection for your customer, for your partner. And that can be associated with personal branding. if they know who you are before you walk into the room and they already respect who you are, given what they've learned about you before, it creates a whole different dynamic within a conversation that actually helps the next step. It's smoothing things up. You don't need to build that trust. It's already in the room when you walk into it, and then things are more smooth sailing from there. And it doesn't need to sound like it's in any way not genuine. I think as long as your brand is true to yourself and it's a genuine brand and you stand behind it and that's actually what you stand for, then then that trust is natural, and you're just reaching more people with
Well,
who
yeah,
you are.
people know. Yeah. And when it's natural, you don't have to do a lot of work to actually build the brand. Although you do have to put some effort in with social media nowadays, putting yourself out there. But, referrals go a long way, as we know. And so people talk, and people talk when you're not in those rooms. And everybody's like, oh my God, have you worked with Avi? She's amazing. She does this, she does that. You're not even there, right? But you've already been sold to that person in the
Yeah.
room. So I do find it very important. What has helped you, other than personal branding, help you build credibility throughout your career?
So I'll say first, it's execute, right? You need to be in a position where you can show a track record of success. And it's being able to stand behind success and also attribute it to your contributions and to your team's contributions and to the people around you, to be genuine about it. It's nobody does things alone. It's not just about one person in a company. Whatever was a success, it's attributed to a team. And I think that being able to articulate that and your part in it is key. So it means first execute. Be able to execute, be able to show results. First thing, keep a high bar,
Yep.
high standard. This is what you bring to the table. And I think besides that, the next step is to also make sure that you are having genuine, open conversations with people. Like I mentioned before, I always have an eye out on what's happening in the market. And it's not because you're looking to necessarily jump ship, or it's never like that. So much so it's important to know what's evolving in the world of business, and what are the different opportunities that you might be able to learn from. Doesn't even mean that you're going for that opportunity. It's just the ability also to know, okay, this is something that's potentially in my horizon. Do I want to go in that direction? This is another thing that I can explore in my horizon, right? Under product management, for example, I had received a lot of different, very interesting opportunities that come from a lot of different directions. And being able to open your mind to that gives you the opportunity to eventually choose to go down different routes.
And it's perspective. Everything is perspective. We definitely don't want to stay stuck in that one way of thinking, right? Based on our own experience. So really feeling out other people's experiences and what they're seeing is highly important. Last question. What's a lesson you learned the hard way that ultimately made you a better leader?
So I think just handling personal disappointment. So one of the things that happens when you go for opportunities in your career, right? When you take that leap of faith, is also the ability and understanding that you're taking a leap of faith. And sometimes it will land as you had envisioned, that best case scenario, that
Yep.
ideal of what you actually would like it to be. And sometimes reality, it'll change. Things change in a company, and things shift and needs shift. And you might have taken a leap and landed a little bit differently than what was initially expected. And that can be, and it's natural, especially if you're going for like what I've done so far, which is to join a lot of startups and go through their growth phase. These companies change all the time. So
Yeah.
you still need to keep a strong center to know that it's okay that things will change around you. And I can give my personal perspective. This is my second maternity leave. So every time you step out and you step back in, you step into something completely new, and you need to be okay with it. And it's like starting from scratch, whatever that was, whatever it is. And if you need to do that leap and if you go into it open-minded and you take the opportunity that's presented, great things can happen, or not. But still,
Yeah.
it's, I think the best lessons are the ones that are, at least for me, it's to just being able to better handle personal disappointment, right? And it's okay. It doesn't mean that you need to change your mindset. It definitely, and you need to keep aiming for that best case scenario. You need to keep aiming for your goals and what you're trying to do, but also be very open to the fact that things change. And when they do, you need to adapt with them. It will always be eventually amazing at that point, whatever decisions you make. So that's my 2 cents to it, to keep the positive mindset, keep aiming for the best, but still be very open to the fact that not everything is in your control. And it's, and whatever will come will still be great, and it's okay.
Yep. It was meant to be. I
Exactly.
I'm a huge believer in that too. I mean, personal disappointment happens to all of us, but again, it's perception. It's how you look at it.
Exactly.
You could look at it half full or half empty, but there's a reason for it. And if anything, it's a lesson learned, right? And that's what develops us. So I'm going to be keeping that in the back of my mind too, right? We sit in our misery a little longer than we should. Even if we come out on the other side, we're just like, why'd this happen? But rather than asking why, just having that, hey,
Yeah.
it's for a reason. But Avi, this has been such a great conversation. I love hearing stories from people who have, successfully bridged the gap between technology and business. And your journey is a fantastic example of how careers, they don't have to follow a straight line. From cybersecurity researcher to product leader to alliance and marketing executive, you've shown what's possible when you're willing to keep learning and evolving. So, before we wrap up, though, where can people connect with you, follow you, your work, or learn more about you?
Sure. LinkedIn is the best place.
Perfect. So we're going to have her name spelled out for you guys in the show notes. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us for another episode of The Authentic Advantage. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with someone who could benefit from it. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Angie.